Good afternoon, YouTube model railroad fans, model railroading live fans, and whoever else watches this wonderful brand of nuttiness. I'm Ray. Welcome to the Boeville Newtown's vlog number 11. It happens to be March the 8th, Sunday, March the 8th. I actually, this is the second take, because last night I actually went ahead and ran the layout and videotaped a freight transfer from the North Yard to Boeville, from Boeville to the Industrial Railway, from the Industrial Railway back to the North Yard. The problem is I came across a couple of issues. I'm trying to see if I can't get myself out of the sunbeam here again. I ran across a couple of issues. Some of it's easy to fix. Some of it's going to be a little bit more involved. The biggest thing is this thing is not ready to be put to the full test yet because I haven't run the electric for this thing. I haven't run the feeder wires for it. So I think, in light of that fact, I think that's the next thing. Is I'm just going to have to stop doing what I've been working on, which is trying to get the track arrangement right, which I think for the most part it is now, and actually start working on some of this more nitpicky stuff, I guess, for lack of a better term. Of course, one of the things I have to fix first is my under the layout chair. I actually bought something for it to make it work a little bit better. The problem is it's too high. So I've got to make some modifications to it. Not a big deal. I'll make the modifications. We'll be good to go. I'm going to work on that. That way I can go ahead and get the under the layout wiring done, and a couple of the other things that needs to be fixed. The other thing I've noticed is that I have to go back and I have to tweak some of my switches. I have to put some switch machines on because they're not functioning correctly without a switch machine on them. So for some of these ones that are on the main line, for the time being, I'm just going to have to get some low profile switch machines until I go ahead and actually order up my KD switch stands, because I am probably going to be going over with a lot of these. That's how this is going to get done. Some of the ones that are on the main line will probably stay electric because of the fact that they're going to have to be remotely triggered. And I guess I'll go ahead and explain that one a little bit more now. If I put this thing into full operation, if we go into full operation mode where there's going to be 6 or 7, maybe 8 guys down here to work this thing, the dispatcher is going to have control over the signaling, which means he's also going to have control over some of the mainline switches, specifically the ones where you've got the crossings, the crossovers, so that you can go from the north to the south, back to the northbound to get around a stalled freight train or a stalled passenger train. I shouldn't say stalled, but a working, there's a train sitting on that line and you need to get past. You've got the right of way. You've got to swing over to the opposite route and continue your run. So the dispatcher is going to have full control over that in operation mode. In continuous run mode, and this is one of those things, I think what I need to do is, after I get finished discussing this, I need to go back and try to explain some things, because there's a few people that are a little confused, and I understand. This layout's a little bit complex, so I'll go back and I'll finish that one too. This thing actually does have 2 modes though. There's a continuous run mode, and then there's the operation mode. Continuous run mode, I can come down here, flip a switch, and 2 trains will just run the 2 main lines. They'll just sit there and loop the whole thing, and it'll take them about 1 minute and 45 seconds to loop the whole layout. That's for people that aren't model railroad people. They just want to see a train run through the scenery and so on and so forth. Perfectly fine. We can do that. if I get 6 or 7 guys together and we come down here, we switch this thing over to operation mode, the 2 yards in the back become effective, and you're going to be coming in, and then you're going to have to get flipped and then sent back out. So, and I'll explain that once I get back over onto that side. Because like I said, it's caused a little bit of confusion. Of course, it could be just me, but that's beside the point. So I need to do some work on this thing before I can get it to that point where it's actually operational. So let me go ahead and I want to show you all one thing here before we go around on the back side. And I'm hoping, there it is. I mocked up my cement plant. Yeah, it's paper towel rolls and blue tape. But it's a start. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and move the camera to the back side and I'll explain this whole mode thing. Alright, what I decided to do is take this thing off the tripod and put it back on the single leg stand here. Okay. Right now, I have the switches set to where it's in operation mode. So in other words, going north, the only way that you can go right now is into the yard. That's what this track here is. If I switch this switch, and then switch these 2 down here, these 2, I now put it into continuous run mode, which means that these tracks in the middle here are now in effect. So a train can continue on northbound and a train can continue on southbound. So that way I don't have to have somebody back here flipping trains. Now the whole point of flipping trains is exactly what we've got going on over here right now. Last night when I got finished playing around with the whole idea of doing a north to south, south to north, or I should say a north to Boeville, Boeville to the Weichert Industrial back to Harrisburg. Right now I've got the train here that did the switching, or that dropped off and picked up cars from the Weichert Industrial area. He also picked up a couple cars from Boeville. So that's where now the person that would be running the Harrisburg yard, or the Harrisburg yard master, would then be taking this train off, putting it underneath the layout into the storage area, and then taking another train, bringing it out and putting it on one of these 3 open tracks, or maybe it would go on to 2 of them. Or in the case of the coal train that I had running the other night, taking up everything. So that's the whole idea. So this railroad actually has 2 operating modes. It's continuous run, or it's operation. I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back in the operation mode before I forget it, because that's the mode that I want to be messing with. And I'm going to stop the tape here a minute. Hey, one spot in this basement where I don't have a sunbeam right, well I do right here, but at least it didn't look too washed out. Anyway, so now you get an idea. And I guess what I'll have to do is actually take my drawing that I had done at one point and kind of lay it out a little bit better as to how this whole thing works. But at that rate, I want to say one other thing here, and I'm going to stop for the time being, and that is thank you to everybody who went ahead and put a comment up about the backdrop thing. Apparently, I didn't look hard enough, so we'll be back. I'm back again and under the sunbeam. I just went back and looked. It happens to be Monday now. And I kind of did explain the whole operation of this thing, but I just came across Ray's Law number 3627. I started running the wiring, and I came up with a rather unique little despooling system here. But I ran across another one of those oops issues, and that is the fact that when I built this thing, I wanted to, before I put the top down, I wanted to, I wanted to go ahead and drill the holes for all the wiring runs. Guess what didn't happen? So I've got to go back and actually drill holes in the 2x4s underneath the layout, and of course it's now 9 o'clock at night and I'm not going to do that right now. So one of the things I do want to show real quick, I think I cleared, no I didn't, I got to go down and clear some things off. Talking about the different modes, and of course here recently one of the things that did happen, and I want to check it out, is the fact that I put the dead tracks in the Boeville yard, or not Boeville yard, but in the Boeville for the passenger trains. I haven't tested all 4 tracks yet. I've only tested 2. So we're going to stop here for a second. We're going to scoot down that end, and I'm going to run the northbound and the southbound passenger trains down there and see if things are going to work. So this will be interesting. Okay, so any second now, here comes Mr. Seaboard. And he is on the northbound run. Perfect. Even though it sounded like I lost a car. And the Baltimore, Ohio is on the southbound run. I did notice one thing, and that is the fact that this is extremely quiet, and I love it. And this locomotive, I think, has got a little bit of an issue. It shouldn't be stopping. I knew these tracks are clean because I just cleaned them. So I gotta work on this locomotive. Oh, perfect. Oh. It sounded like I lost the car on the Seaboard, but it doesn't feel like it. Okay. Well, anyway, so what would happen here now is what I'm doing is I'm actually flipping the curved turnouts, which is something else I still need to work on too. I need to get some switch machines for these. Not sure what I'm going to use yet. Probably going to be tortoises or something of that nature. So now I'm going to start the Boeville, or the Baltimore and Ohio and the Wabash. And I don't know why that tank keeps coming loose on the Wabash. The way that they did that was ridiculous, and I haven't figured out a way to do it more permanently, or if I want to do it more permanently. Anyway, so, you know what, oops, sorry. Let's just go ahead and follow Mr. Baltimore and Ohio here, which is running way too slow, but for a passenger train. I forgot this one here, the reason why it's running a little bit slow is the passenger cars are actually lit. They've actually got lights in them, so that's the reason why he's running a little slower. Yeah, I love how this is so quiet, and once I go ahead and get the phone or the the actual roadbed, whether it be cork or whatever, it'll get even quieter. Oops. Oops. I forgot. I have a train sitting there. That's not going to happen. All right. Well, it is now Saturday, March the 14th, 2020. It's Pi Day. And you can take that for what it's worth. Anyway, I was just going back through and watching the video, and I actually had to edit some things, and I found out that I actually was misspeaking on something that I was talking about, so we're going to fix that here. I'm not going to tell you what I did. We're just going to fix it. So the other night, as you know, I was running the passenger trains down here. I was flipping them between the two sides. And I found out that the RDC pair, which right now happens to be just the RDC because I broke my drawbar between the two of them that I made last year. So I gotta go back and fix that now. But I was gonna tack everything down, went through and did some testing, found out that the RDC and the E8, the Proto 2000 E8 unit, the Wabash, their wheels are so far apart that the dead tracks on a couple of the runs in here, on the 8 tracks or the 4 tracks that are in here, on 2 of them, they were just skipping right over the dead track. Now, what's dead track? I know everybody in here is familiar with, most folks in here are familiar with DCC and knows all of its idiosyncrasies and so on and so forth. I'm a holdout, I'm still a DC guy. And there's 2 ways of stopping a train with power still to the rails, I guess, in DC. You have those 2 options. One of them is the block system, where you isolate both rails on either end of a section of track. You've got a set of wires that come down. They go to a DPDT center off switch. A DPDT is a double pole, double throw switch. One side comes from one power pack, the other side comes from the other power pack, and then depending on which way you throw it or which way it's sitting, it's either on for one side, off, or on for the other side. And then when it's in the off position, there's no power to the rails at all. That's one way of doing it. Which is great for when you've got, like what I've got over near the industrial railway, where you're going to have a train sitting and you have another train that's got to get past. Well, then you need to change the block, so that way power pack A is feeding to both blocks. It's feeding or I shouldn't say feeding both blocks. It would actually be power pack, it may be power pack B, it doesn't matter. Either side, it's going to be feeding both the northbound and the southbound tracks at the same time, so that that train can continue its run around the train that's working the yard or working the industrial railway. Or it might be over here, you know, working the fascia flat and the interchange track. That's what blocks are good for. Dead tracks are great for when you have a spot where you want to stop a train at the same position every time. Such is the case as Boeville's Passenger Station. You've got 4 tracks underneath there, 2 going north, 2 going south. That a train, I want a train to come in and it needs to stop at a specific point every time. And that way I can have another train pass it without having to run, you know, multiple wires and so on. You're still only running, you've only got the power to the track. That dead track, what it is you've isolated one rail for a certain section, and in that isolation area, you're using an SPST, single pole, single throw, to where it's getting power. It's like a light switch. It's getting power on one side, you have the switch, and then on the outside, or on the other side of it, it's feeding the rail. So you have power coming in, and then it's feeding the rail. So if you turn it on, that rail's got power, the train takes off. If the switch is off, then that section becomes dead, and the train just comes in and stops on it. I don't know if I can actually get in close enough for you to see what it is I'm going to talk about. I'm sorry if I'm going to shake this, but we'll take where the RDC is sitting here, for instance, and sorry if this is really shaking, but so we're looking at the second set of tracks underneath of what will be underneath of Boeville. And right here, and it's kind of hard to see, but right here there's an isolated rail joint, and right here there's an isolated rail joint, which means that this whole section here, from this point to this point, is dead, unless I flip a switch. And of course I don't have the wire hooked up to this yet, so the train is going to stop there and it's just going to sit there until I move it. And in fact, right now, because of the way I went ahead and redid things, the RDC is actually sitting on one of those dead rails. So that way it will not move. There's going to be power. Right now there isn't, but there could be power on the track, but it's not going to move until I move it off that section. Or once I put in the switches, it goes ahead and puts power to that track. So that's the idea behind that. Now those dead tracks are also being used underneath of, or not underneath, but also being used in the north yard and the south yard. Not so much for when a train comes into those yards, but when you're setting up, or the yard master is setting up the trains to leave, there's dead tracks in there. Now those, I haven't decided if I'm going to put switches on those yet, or if I'm just going to let them be as they are, and once you start a train up, you just push it out of the yard and it takes and does its thing. That's still one of those things that's kind of up for debate in this little pea brain of mine, but trying to think if there's anything else going on right now, and really there isn't. I was actually supposed to be on vacation this week, and that's one of the reasons why I was trying to get this vlog together tonight. I was actually going to be leaving tomorrow, which would have been Sunday the 15th, but due to some things that have come up, we're no longer doing that. We actually canceled that trip as of today. However, considering the fact the way things have been going at work, I decided, you know what, no matter what, I'm taking this week off. So I'm gonna have a week of just hanging out and doing stuff around the house, and probably coming down here and doing some work down here as well, because I've got stuff to do. As you know, I went ahead and I was gonna run the wiring the other night and found out that I forgot to go ahead and drill holes in the 2x4s, and well, now I've got to go through and do that. I did fix my chair. So, and like I said, because of the fact that we were actually supposed to be leaving tomorrow, we have some folks that were going to come over and house sit and dog sit for us. So I went ahead and cleaned everything up. Now I don't know what I did with everything. So now I'm going to have to go on a scavenger hunt to figure out what I did with the stuff that I need. So anyway, this is going to be the end of vlog 11. I hate the Ides of March. You all know the deal. Wait for the highball. Green tracks ahead. Be safe. God bless. We'll catch you next time. See ya.